Bad Therapy, Why the Kids Aren't Growing Up. That's the book from Abigail Schreier, who has really become a very popular and well-regarded author in the last couple of years. She wrote a lot during COVID about how dumb it was that we were putting kids at home. They were struggling at home. It was hurting working class and working poor families more than it was upper middle class and upper class folks. And she was one of the loudest voices on this during COVID. And she was right. I mean, it's not even like I don't care how you feel about things during COVID, but she was right. It was a disservice to our kids, and we hurt our children to protect 90-year-olds. One of the dumbest things this country's ever done. So she's got a new book out, and the headline in the book is titled Bad Therapy, Why the Kids Aren't Growing Up. And she was on with Dan Bongino yesterday, and Dan's on every day, noon to 2. His show is doing great here on KCMO. We love having him on. And it was an outstanding interview. You know, I listen to as much of it as I can during the day if I'm not in meetings and doing other things for the day job here. But I kind of stumbled upon it. I wrapped up a call. I turned on the station, and I hear Abigail Schreier just after 1 o'clock yesterday. And as someone with 3 young kids, but if you have kids of any age or grandkids, it's something that we all think about right now. And it's how we're raising our kids, how they're struggling more than ever. Anxiety, depression continues to skyrocket. And why is that happening? What is going on? What are the reasons behind that? Abigail Schreier yesterday talking to Dan Bongino, and what exactly is happening here?
And I think we're teaching them to be victims, and we've kind of almost created this snowflake generation.
That's right. We did that, and it wasn't on purpose, but I think it did happen. Remember, we used to hear things like shake it off, knock it off, you know, sticks and stones may break my bones. That all had a lot of wisdom to it. And in fact, what we're doing is the opposite. We're teaching kids that anything, any little harm could be trauma, that elementary kids, if they got picked on or they got teased a little bit, have PTSD. It's not true. It was never true, but it's doing them real harm. We have a generation, less than half of the rising generation will say that its mental health is good. They have talked themselves into mental illness, essentially, and we have participated in that by always catering to their feelings and obsessing about their feelings, and these generation thinks their feelings is the most important thing, and they're never able to ignore their feelings, and that's a real problem.
That was Abigail Schreier with Dan Bongino yesterday. And I was sitting there and I was cheering as I'm listening to that. And it's not about how, you know, you can't go through tough times and talking to somebody's not valuable. I mean, I have done a stint in therapy as an adult. But when you're talking about kids, when their brains are not fully developed, and we're going into this deep psychological place with kids, my experience, and I know my kids are young, they don't need it. Yeah, sometimes they need a hug. Sometimes they need to be told, hey, you're fine. It's going to be okay. Get up, you know, rub that knee, move on. Life's going to be fine. And I know there's also going to be times when, you know what, something's going to happen. It's going to be tough. They're not going to like it, but it's going to be a great learning experience for them. And when you hear stuff like this from Abigail Schreier about her new book, I'm cheering. I'm doing celebratory dances here in this, John, because we need more of it.
Absolutely. My son's raising a grandson's the same way.
Yeah, that's how it should be done.
Shake it off here, you know, your brothers, you know, blah, blah, blah. You get up and you move on, right? The most asinine thing I think we've seen is adults implying that children can understand certain things. And like we don't remember being a child. When you're a child, it's all about you. Mom and dad are fighting. Is it about me?
Yeah.
Right? You need to calm them down. Even, you know, things go on domestically.
Yeah.
The child always takes it in internally. Everything's about them.
Yep.
At that age. And you need to then quell those fears appropriately from there. Not get into, well, you see, there are Democrats and Republicans, Timmy, and the Democrats. No.
Yeah.
Right.
So Abigail Schreier then also noted the importance of having fathers and the importance of having strong dads. And dads have gotten pushed by the wayside in today's environment. Part of it is their fault, right? Some dads don't want to be present. Some dads don't care. But also there is this thought that continues to permeate more and more that, dads are the goofy guys who don't really know any better. And dads are just like, goofballs, they're doofuses, and they don't know what's best anyway. It's all about mom. Dads have partially done that to themselves culturally by not being present, but also, and I say this as somebody with 3 daughters, the female empowerment thing has been great, but it's swung the pendulum way too far in the other direction at the expense of men. I want my daughters to be strong, rah-rah woman, female empowerment. That's how I'm going to raise them. That's how we're going to raise them. But it doesn't need to be at the expense of men, at the expense of fathers. And that's what we've done. And Abigail Schreier talked about that yesterday with Dan Bongino here on KCMO.
That when fathers threw their kids up in the air, they were beta testing them. They were saying, don't worry, I'll catch you. I know you're going to be a little scared, but we're going to learn to face your fear. And that was a huge thing for kids. And now dads are told you have to do everything the way the parenting expert says, and it's the way mom says, and the parenting expert is a therapist, and the children are much more fragile than you realize, and you are causing trauma. It's not true. It was never true. But here's the problem. We're giving kids unhealthy lives where they're constantly monitored, where there isn't a dad around, where there is no belief that they are strong and they can go off and do things by themselves without being monitored. We give them this unhealthy life. We don't punish. We never tell them no. And then when they act out, we pour in mental health resources, expecting that to cure an unhealthy life. It's not going to cure it. It only makes it worse. These kids need family around. They need cousins, siblings. They need to be told what grandma and grandpa went through, what the family went through, the hard times. They need to know they can get through it too.
And does it feel like that message is just, if it's even being told, it's falling on deaf ears? I don't even think that message is being really signaled or told anymore. I don't think people in large part even care about their own family history. And I admit, I'm not Mr. Rah-rah family history guy. I admit I could do a better job of that. But it's important to know that story, to have that story, because we all have it. Every single family has one. And if you have kids who are now 5, 10, 15 years old, and they're caught up in their own little minds, and they think they've got these massive struggles despite the fact that they have everything they need more than any other generation has when it comes to information at their fingertips, literally at their fingertips. While life is tougher in some respects when it comes to social media, if you have the right guardrails, it's never been more convenient, and it's never been easier due to technological advances. Understanding that's important. But instead, what do we do culturally? We put 5-year-olds in therapy. We tell them, gosh, they're going through this thing, and they think they're a different gender, and, well, by golly, I must affirm that. And if I don't affirm it, what are my friends going to think of me? That's happening every single day, and people want to normalize that crap. And I'm sorry, it's not normal, and we're not going to normalize it. And if you just have the structure, it will go a long way.
You're right. I feel like I was raised with the you can be anything you want to be, but that started to shift into you're special.
Yeah.
Which was to imply you're unique, but then everyone assumes they're special and everything then revolves around them rather than being you can be what you want to be. Don't let anybody stop you. Just move on. I decided I want to be in radio. I'm just going to do it. Yeah. Right?
And so much of that now has gotten to the point where, once again, it's gone too far in the other direction. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying, you can be what you want to be, but, you can't be a bird. If you're a boy, you can't be a girl, okay? Yeah. There are limitations to what you can be.
Indeed.
I thought I was going to be in the NBA when I was a kid. I quickly realized by probably middle school that wasn't going to happen. And I came to my own conclusion on that by living in the real world and living in reality.